Senator Davey.
Thank you, Mr President. I would like to add some short comments in this tribute to Doug Anthony. Much has already been said about Mr Anthony's career and his achievements, both in this chamber as well as at his state memorial service in Tweeds Heads last Thursday. I first met Mr Anthony, or Doug, when I was a young teenager whose main understanding of politics was it was just something my dad and his friends talked about. At the time, I had little concept of the import of the Deputy Prime Minister or the role that Doug had played in shaping our nation, particularly in the regions. And testament to the kind of man he was, Doug did not stand on ceremony with me. He did not speak down to me or make me feel inferior. He spoke to me like he spoke to everyone, as an equal. His genuine, easygoing manner, warm, broad smile, and his quick sense of humour was endearing. And it was only in subsequent years, as I got to know both him and his wife Margot, as well as their son Larry, that I got to understand that the kind, warm man that I knew had actually been one of our longest-serving Deputy Prime Ministers, a champion for rural industries, and a man who had done so much to shape our modern nation. Indeed, Doug was an original futurist. He was a man who really saw potential and saw what the future might bring. He made much of recognising the future mechanisation of agriculture. As the Minister for the Interior, which was his first portfolio, he helped shape the national capital that we all stand in today. It was not long after, in political terms, when he, only 6 years after being elected, he took on the role as Minister for Interior. And he took it on with the same level of commitment as he did everything. And he was therefore instrumental in shaping Canberra, involved in developments such as the Canberra Theatre, Anzac Parade, the Mint, choosing the site for the Carillon, and he lobbied for the Captain Cook jet fountain, which was ultimately switched on by his successor in the portfolio, but which he was very proud of. He was also fundamental in starting the work and establishing the new town centres of Woden and Belconnen, which are now part of inner city Canberra, as the success of the national capital has seen it expand. But he was also a futurist in other areas. As mentioned by Senator Canavan, he identified the trade opportunities in uranium, which is now a zero-emissions product. So he was on the money. He was one of the first to identify the opportunities of working from home, as has been mentioned. So, you know, he would have done very well in the COVID lockdown, as he was fully prepared for that sort of a lifestyle and that sort of working environment. But, you know, you should ask, why was Doug so adept at such a young age, politically speaking, at representing both his rural constituency as well as taking on ministerial responsibilities and negotiating, you know, bilateral trade agreements? And to understand that, you need to understand a bit about Doug's background. The Anthony family are the only political dynasty in Australia, and there are a few, but they are the only one to have seen 3 consecutive generations in the same House of Representatives electorate, being Doug's father Hubert, who was also known in Canberra as Larry, Doug, and his second son Larry. Hubert was a soldier, turned farmer, turned local MP, and then finally a minister, and he taught his son much. Doug's upbringing was split between visits to Canberra and the family home at Murwillumbah on the north coast. But Doug was always encouraged to be his own man and to determine his own destiny. And Doug was not initially drawn into politics. As mentioned by Senator Birmingham, he first turned his attention to farming. He established his dairy and he set about with full gusto, learning about primary production practices both here and abroad. He travelled extensively and learned a lot. Indeed, as outlined in the book mentioned by Senator Canavan, Politics in the Blood, it is revealed that after one international visit, Doug returned to be greeted by his ministerial father at the airport with media in train. His father told him to take the hat off, claiming he looked ridiculous, but Doug left his straw Stetson on his head as he regaled the surrounding newsmen about the streamlined production methods and the extensive use of modern machinery and efficient distribution facilities in the US. And he confidently predicted that Australian farmers would have to adapt to be able to continue to compete. Settling back into Australia, Doug found continuing interest in what he'd learned, and he sought out to share his experiences talking at Rotary, business chambers and farming organisations. He spoke eloquently not only about primary production, but also the mechanisation, technological advances and innovation. His easygoing approach, clear delivery and amicable nature saw him in high demand, which in turn saw him further fine-tune his public speaking skills and ability to adopt and adapt new ideas. And I believe it was that early career and experience that was fundamental to building the successful politician and leader that we remember here today. And successful he was by any measure. He was a minister in all coalition governments from March 1964 onwards. He was a cabinet minister from October 1967 and deputy prime minister and frequently acting Prime Minister from February 1971 to December 72, and then again from December 75 to March 1983. And it was towards the end of that time that I first met him, when he requested that my father take over the directorship of the National Party, promising Dad that they would make a great team, and he wanted to work with my dad. And shortly after my dad took the role, Doug promptly resigned. So, as leader of his elevation to the leadership did mark a generational change in the party's evolution, as Senator Canavan discussed. He broadened the party's platform and widened its electoral appeal, and that has helped to cement our party's ongoing relevance in Australian politics, and that is why our party has now spanned 100 years, and we are all very proud of that. As leader of the party, indeed during the Fraser-Anthony years, it was often said that the Nationals wielded more influence than their parliamentary numbers deserved. But that assertion ignores the fact that the success was because the Nationals brought forward good policies, and that Doug could champion those policies such that they became government policy. And that is the power of cooperative coalition. In his retirement, Doug returned to his farm, Sunny Meadows, and worked just as hard for his passion projects. Together with his wife Margot, they donated some of their land for the development of new premises for the Tweed River Art Gallery. Known today as the Tweed Regional Gallery, it is now recognised as a leading regional art gallery in Australia. And turning full circle, in 1999, he again took a role that saw him help shape our national capital. He was appointed chairman of the Old Parliament House Advisory Council. The role took him back to his childhood and reminded him of the days when he used to visit his father. In those days, Old Parliament House was a relatively new Parliament House of 11 years old. So being there on that board and helping supervise refurbishments and determine the future for that grand old building was a job he absolutely loved. And he was fundamental to the building becoming what it is now, the Permanent Museum of Political History here in Canberra. He retired from the role in November 2008 and spent the remainder of his time with his family, surrounded by loved ones in the North Coast. So this was the kind man that I knew. And while many in Doug's position could easily have forgotten that awkward teen, he did not. He always greeted me warmly, remembered my name, which for some old politicians that I knew was quite remarkable, but greeted me warmly, and he always took an interest in what I was up to through all stages of my life, no matter where our paths crossed or when. I held Doug and his family in enormous regard, and I still do. And my thoughts and prayers are with Margot, Dougal, Larry and Jane. Doug was a great MP, a great minister, a great party leader, but most importantly, he was a genuine person and a great man.